My name is Savannah Cole. I'm 25 years old. Your brother's got a real shot at something. You should pick up a skill, maybe learn how to do nails or something practical. That's what my dad said while sitting across from me at the kitchen table, a pen in his hand, signing away $200,000 that had my name written all over it. Money my grandparents had been stacking up since the day I was born, dollar by dollar, year by year, for me. I didn't scream. I didn't flip that table over. I didn't throw a single plate at that man's head, even though, trust me, I thought about it. I picked up my bag, walked out the front door with $380 to my name, and I never looked back. That was 7 years ago. Quick favor before we start, subscribe if you haven't, and drop your city plus the time you're tuning in down in the comments. Now let's get into this story because trust me, you're going to want to stay till the end. Last month, my parents walked into my office on the 12th floor of a building in downtown Columbus, Ohio. My mother grabbed the wall the second she stepped off the elevator. Not because of the floor-to-ceiling windows. Not because of the 50 employees buzzing around behind glass walls. It was the way I looked at her. The way you look at someone who just wandered into the wrong building and can't quite figure out where they took a wrong turn. But to understand what happened in that office, what really happened, you gotta go back 7 years. Back to a kitchen table in Westerville, Ohio, and one piece of paper my father never even knew existed. I grew up on Ridgemont Drive in Westerville. Red brick colonial, black shutters, a front yard my dad reseeded every single spring because appearances were basically a religion in the Cole household. From the outside, we looked like the family from a Sears catalog. From the inside, it was more like a country under occupation. My dad, Douglas Cole, was a regional director for a healthcare supply company out of Columbus. 45-minute commute, company car, a firm handshake that he practiced, I swear to God. He ran the money in our house the same way a warden runs a prison. Nobody moved without permission. My mom, Patricia, didn't have her name on a single credit card until she was 49. I'm not exaggerating. Not one card. My brother Caleb, 2 years older, 6'1", and basically the center of my dad's entire solar system, got the new laptop every fall without asking. Got driven to AAU basketball tournaments 4 states over. Got the finished basement bedroom when I was shuffled up to the attic at 13 so Caleb could have space to think. I got the chores. I got the laundry rotation. I got the quiet expectation that I'd hold everything together while the men of the house went out and chased greatness. I was good at design. Like really good. My teacher, Mrs. Holloway, pulled me aside in 9th grade and told me I had the kind of visual mind that interior architecture firms would fight over. I brought home a portfolio and a letter recommending a summer program at the Pratt Institute in New York. My dad picked it up, flipped through maybe 3 pages, set it on the counter. Drawing rooms for a living isn't a career, Savannah. It's a phase. He never mentioned it again. But the education accounts, those were supposed to be different. My grandparents on my mom's side, Grandpa Roy and Grandma Vivian, had opened 2 UTMA accounts the year each of us was born. One for Caleb, one for me. $200,000 each, built up over 18 years of careful saving and smart investing. My dad announced it at Christmas dinner when I was 16. Stood at the head of the table like he was accepting an Academy Award. Both my kids have a full ride sitting in the bank. $200,000 apiece. That's their future and nobody touches it. The whole room clapped. Uncle Dennis, Aunt Lorraine, cousins who barely knew my name. I sat there and smiled and looked at the mantel over the fireplace. Every single frame was Caleb. His travel basketball trophy. His honor roll certificate. His prom photo. I had one photo on that mantel. A group Christmas shot from 2014 where my left shoulder was barely visible behind my dad's arm. I thought to myself, at least the money is equal. I was wrong about that too. There was one person in my entire life who made me feel like I was somebody. It was my grandmother Vivian. She'd spent 35 years as a seamstress out of her home in Bexley, Ohio. Alterations, custom hemming, the kind of hands-on work that people don't appreciate until they need a wedding dress taken in the night before the ceremony. She had this way of listening to you like you were the only channel worth tuning into. Nobody else in my family did that for me. Grandma Vivian was the one who taught me how to sketch with purpose. Not fine art stuff, practical drafting. She'd spread a sewing pattern across her cutting table and I'd trace it freehand while she pinned fabric. Your hands and your brain, baby girl, she'd say. Nobody on this earth can repo those. She passed away the spring I turned 17. Ovarian cancer. Fast and mean about it. My dad didn't show up to the funeral. Prior commitment, which in Douglas Cole language meant he didn't feel like burning a PTO day for his wife's mother. My mom stood at the graveside alone. I stood right next to her. Caleb didn't come. He was at some frat rush event at Ohio State. 3 days before she died, Grandma Vivian pulled me close in her hospital bed. Her voice had gone thin, but her grip on my wrist was iron. I put something aside for you, sweet girl. Just for you. Nobody else's hands touch it. A man named Frank Delgado will find you when you're ready. I figured she meant jewelry. Maybe that quilt she'd been working on. I was 17, I didn't know what an estate trustee was. After the service, I found a cedar box she'd left for me. Inside, her sewing kit, her soft worn measuring tape, and a folded piece of paper. Frank Delgado Esq 614 area code. I tucked it in my wallet behind my library card and forgot about it for 2 whole years. Caleb came home from Ohio State during the fall of my senior year walking like a man who'd just discovered he was the main character. His GPA was somewhere around a 2.1. I only knew because I'd heard him arguing with the registrar on the phone about an incomplete grade. But at the dinner table, he was networking, building his personal brand, laying the foundation. Dad ate it up like it was a free meal at a steakhouse. One Saturday in early March, Caleb walked in wearing a brand new button-down, tag still attached, carrying a plastic binder with 8 double-spaced pages he called his business roadmap. I was at the kitchen sink washing breakfast dishes when he sat down across from Dad and started his pitch. He needed his MBA. Top-tier program. Then startup capital, something in digital business strategy, which as far as I could tell meant a hot desk at WeWork and a lot of LinkedIn activity. And the funding he needed? He did the math, roughly $200,000. I turned off the faucet. Dad, Caleb said, leaning back with his ankle on his knee like he owned the zip code. Let's be real here. You've got 2 college accounts just sitting there. I need one. Savannah, come on. What's she gonna do, design living rooms? He said it the way you dismiss a kid's macaroni art. Not even mean about it. Just nothing. Like I wasn't standing 10 feet away with dish soap up to my elbows. And my dad, the same man who'd stood at the Christmas table and said both my kids, looked at that plastic binder, nodded real slow and said, "You might actually be onto something, son." They waited a week to tell me. Paperwork, probably. Sunday morning. Coffee smell, toast smell, March light coming through the window over the sink making everything look a little too honest. Dad sat at the head of the table. Caleb was next to him, ankles crossed, holding one of those $30 ceramic mugs like he'd already won. "Sit down, Savannah." I sat. He didn't ease into it. Douglas Cole never eased into anything. I'm consolidating the education accounts. Caleb has a real business opportunity and I'm not going to let it slip through our fingers. Both funds are going into his name. That's $200,000 for his future. He straightened a napkin. You should learn a trade. Nail tech, cosmetology, something you can build on. Good, honest money in that. I looked at my mom. Patricia was at the sink with her back half turned, both hands gripping the counter, staring at the floor tiles like she was trying to memorize them. Mom. Nothing. Not a word. Not a glance. Your mother agrees, Dad said. And just like that, something between me and her died right there on that kitchen floor. No service, no burial. Just silence and burnt toast. I looked at my father. I looked at my brother. I said one word. Okay. Then I stood up, pushed in my chair, and walked upstairs. That single word cost me $200,000. But what I did in the next 48 hours was going to be worth a whole lot more. I didn't leave that night. I know that's what people want, the dramatic storm out, door slamming, tires peeling. That's not how I operated. I did math. I had 2 AP exams left. 2 days. If I walked before graduation, I'd lose the only credential I had. So I sat in my attic room and made a plan. Monday, AP English. Crushed it. Tuesday, AP Art History. 3.5 hours. Easiest test of my life. Wednesday afternoon, I walked across the gym floor in a blue cap and gown, shook the principal's hand, and took my diploma. My parents weren't there. They were at Ohio State for some end-of-year dinner for Caleb's fraternity. Caleb, by the way, hadn't graduated that semester. My parents didn't know that yet. I walked out into the June sun and I didn't go home. I'd packed the night before. 1 duffel bag. 3 outfits. My laptop. A phone charger. Grandma Vivian's cedar box. And the folded paper with Frank Delgado's number still in my wallet. I left a note on the kitchen table, the same table where Grandma Vivian used to show me how to trace patterns. I'm leaving. Please don't come looking. You made your choice. I called a lift, got in, and watched the black shutters of Ridgemont Drive disappear through the back window. $380. A high school diploma. A dead woman's sewing box. A phone number I'd never called. It wasn't much. But it was mine. Columbus in the summer is loud, sweaty, and absolutely indifferent to your problems. If you're 18 and running on adrenaline and stubbornness, that's exactly what you need. I found a room in a 3-bedroom apartment on North 4th Street, $725 a month, shared bathroom, 2 roommates I'd never met. One was a nursing student named Brianna who worked overnight shifts and slept with blackout curtains at noon. The other was a guy named Terrell who played drums in a cover band and thought 2 p.m. was early morning. Nobody asked why I was there. Nobody asked about my family. I loved that. I got a barista job on High Street within the first week. Minimum wage plus tips. I enrolled at Columbus State Community College for the fall interior design program. Tuition was manageable, barely, if I picked up extra shifts on weekends. 2 weeks later, my dad's voicemail. You're overreacting, Savannah. This is exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about. Come home and we'll look into a cosmetology program. Something with a real future. He left 4 more messages that month, each shorter and angrier than the last. My mom called once, late, whispering, Savannah, honey. I'm worried about you. Your dad just wants what's best. Come home, we can figure this out. Figure what out, Mom? He gave away my money. A pause. Your father knows what he's doing. Just come home, baby. I hung up. And I understood, with the kind of cold clarity you only get at rock bottom, that my mother was never going to pick me. Not because she didn't love me, but because she'd spent 25 years letting Douglas Cole make every single decision, and she didn't know how to stop. That pattern was carved into her bones. That night, I deleted home from my contacts. Meanwhile, Caleb texted the family group chat with a laughing emoji. Guess the artist couldn't handle real life. And that same week, his Instagram showed a rooftop bar somewhere in Chicago, a bottle of something expensive, caption, MBA life. Paid for every cent of it. I closed the app and opened my textbook. 3 months in, I was running on 4 hours of sleep, black coffee, and a stubbornness I'd inherited from a woman who hemmed wedding dresses in her garage until her knuckles swelled shut. One night, digging through my bag for a highlighter, I felt the cedar box. I opened it the way you open something you know is going to hurt, slow, careful. The measuring tape. The needles in their felt case. And underneath everything, the folded paper. Frank Delgado Escu. I'd been carrying it for 2 years. Always figured it was for later, some vague future emergency I couldn't picture. But sitting on that bunk bed with $190 in my account and a tuition bill coming in 5 weeks, I realized, this is the emergency. I called the next morning. Frank Delgado picked up on the second ring. His voice was calm and unhurried, the voice of someone who'd spent 40 years reading legal documents to grieving families. He told me he'd been trying to reach me. Sent 2 letters to the Westerville address over the past 2 years. I never got them, I said. A long pause. I see. We both understood exactly what that meant. Douglas had intercepted them. Frank asked me to come to his office in Bexley. 2 buses to get there. Small practice, just him and a paralegal, in a brick building that smelled like old wood and legal pads. He sat me down and explained what Grandma Vivian had done. She'd set up a revocable trust 5 years before she passed, $15,000 from her personal savings. Sole beneficiary, Savannah Marie Cole. Structured to transfer when I turned 18 and made contact with the trustee. Frank was that trustee. She told me you'd call eventually, he said. She just didn't know when. He slid a check across the desk. $15,000. And beside it, a copy of the trust document with my grandmother's signature at the bottom. Thin, shaky, but every letter deliberate. I held that piece of paper and I cried for the first time since I'd left Westerville. Not because of the money. 'Cause someone had planned for me. Someone had sat down with an attorney and said, this is for Savannah and nobody else gets a hand on it. But Frank wasn't done. There's something else, he said. He opened a folder. Inside was a printout, an email from Douglas J. Cole to Heartland Federal Bank, dated March 12, 7 years ago, requesting full withdrawal and transfer of custodial funds, $200,000, from the account of Savannah M. Cole to a new account in the name of Caleb D. Cole. 4 sentences. My name appeared exactly once, as an account number. Under Ohio law, Frank explained, a UTMA custodian has a fiduciary duty to use those assets for the benefit of the minor. That's you. What your father did isn't just wrong, Savannah. It's a legal breach. You have standing to pursue recovery. My stomach dropped. So I can get it back? Frank was straight with me. You can file. But your father would need to actually have the assets. Litigation takes time and money you may not have. I won't make promises I can't keep. I sat with that for a long time, staring at my father's name on that printout. Cold. Transactional. Like moving inventory between warehouses. Then I folded the paper, tucked it in the envelope with my check, and said, I'm not going to sue him. Frank raised an eyebrow. I don't want his money anymore. I want my own. He nodded the way people do when they respect a decision they wouldn't have made themselves. The statute of limitations on a UTMA breach in Ohio is 6 years, he said. The door stays open. I thanked him. Took the check, the trust document, and the email printout. Walked to the bus stop in the rain holding a manila envelope against my chest like it was something precious. $15,000 in Columbus, Ohio. Barely 4 months of rent. But it was the first money in my life that someone handed me because they believed in me. Not out of obligation. Not out of guilt. Out of love. I'm going to be real with you about what those first 3 years actually looked like. 'Cause people imagine some kind of movie montage, sunrise time-lapse, late nights at the desk, everything golden. That's not what happened. It was unglamorous and exhausting, and there were weeks where the only thing keeping me upright was the fear of proving my dad right. I used the $15,000 like water in a drought. Tuition at Columbus State for a full year ran about $4,200. I bought a refurbished iMac and a student license for Adobe Creative Cloud. The rest I rationed, rent gaps, the electric bill, groceries when Terrell forgot his share again. I graduated Columbus State with a 3.91 GPA, top of the interior design cohort. That earned me a transfer scholarship to Columbus College of Art and Design. Covered about 65% of tuition. I covered the rest with a part-time campus job and freelance work on Fiverr, logo design, brand packages, $12 an hour if I was lucky. First semester at CCAD, I walked into an internship interview and met Sandra Park. Sandra was the creative director of a residential interior design firm in Columbus, Westview Design Group. 14 employees, mostly high-end residential projects. She was about 42, wore her glasses on her head like she was always about to read something important, and said exactly what she thought at all times. She flipped through my portfolio without a word. Then looked up. "Who trained you?" "My grandma and YouTube." She almost smiled. "Your spatial work is rough around the edges, but the instinct is exceptional." I don't say that lightly. She offered me the internship on the spot. 20 hours a week. $14 an hour. Starting Monday. I said yes before the sentence was done. Meanwhile, somewhere across the state, my brother Caleb, funded by my $200,000, was living a completely different kind of potential. I wasn't following his social media anymore, not on purpose. But Brianna followed some mutual connection and things filtered through. Caleb had dropped his MBA program after 14 months. Just quit. Took the remaining funds and pivoted to a digital consulting startup that seemed to consist entirely of a shared desk in a Chicago co-working space and a LinkedIn profile full of buzzwords. He leased a BMW 4 Series. Rented a place in Lincoln Park. Posted photos from rooftop parties with captions like "Building the Empire, brick by brick." My dad told anyone who'd listen, "Caleb's doing big things in Chicago." Real entrepreneur energy. Not once, according to Aunt Lorraine, my only surviving thread to the family, did anyone mention me. Sandra said something to me at the end of my first month at the studio. We were rolling up presentation boards after a client pitch, and she stopped and looked at me the way Grandma Vivian used to, like I was the only person in the room worth seeing. "I don't know what you left behind, Savannah. But whatever it was, keep running. You're heading somewhere." She didn't know the half of it. But she saw enough. By the start of year 3, I had something I'd never had before. A life that was entirely mine. I was 20. Full-time at CCAD, working 25 hours a week at the studio, freelancing on weekends. My apartment was a 420-square-foot studio in Italian Village. A west-facing window I pushed my drafting table against. Walls covered in mood boards and material swatches. It looked like someone was building something because someone was. That's when my dad decided he needed me back. Not because he missed me. Because the Marshalls, our next-door neighbors from Ridgemont Drive, had started asking questions at his company's community fundraiser. "Where's Savannah these days, Douglas? She doing okay?" My father could not tolerate loose ends. Call came through my mom, of course. "Your father would like you to come home for Easter. Some of his colleagues are coming, and the Marshalls." Translation: "Your absence is creating PR problems. I appreciate the invite, Mom, but I have plans." Then my dad's voice, sudden and sharp. He'd been on the line the whole time. "You're embarrassing this family, Savannah. People keep asking about you. What am I supposed to say? Not 'Are you safe?' Not 'How are you doing?' But what do I tell people? Tell them the truth, Dad. Don't you get smart with me. I'm not coming home to be a prop. You made your decision 2 years ago. I made mine." He hung up. I stood in my studio apartment with my hands still pressed to my ear, heart hammering. Not because I was scared. Because for the first time I'd said no to Douglas Cole, and the ceiling hadn't caved in. Within a week, the damage control started. Douglas sent an email to every aunt, uncle, and cousin on both sides of the family. Subject line: "Family Update." I know the exact wording because Aunt Lorraine forwarded it to me with zero comment, her quiet way of saying "You need to see this." It read, "Dear family, Patricia and I want to address Savannah's situation. As some of you may know, Savannah has chosen to create distance from the family. We've done everything we can to support her and keep the door open, but she has declined. She is going through a very difficult personal period and we ask for your understanding and prayers. Personal period. Not I took her college fund. Not I told her to learn a trade while I bankrolled her brother's lifestyle. Just vague, loaded language designed to let people fill in whatever blank made him look best. Substance abuse. Mental health. A bad relationship. Calls started within days. Cousin Brittany texted, "Praying for you, girl." Uncle Dennis left a voicemail about getting right with God. Aunt Lorraine, the only one sharp enough to see through it, called me directly. "Honey, are you okay? Your dad says you're struggling. Aunt Lorraine, I love you. But go ask Dad what happened to my college fund and then decide who's struggling." She went quiet. Kind of quiet that happens when someone is recalculating everything they thought they knew. She asked Douglas. I know she did because she told me later. His response? "That's between me and my children." Classic. Caleb called me on a Thursday night, maybe 8 months after the Easter blow-up. First time I'd heard his voice in nearly 3 years. "Hey sis." Warm. Casual. Like we'd just seen each other at Christmas. I picked up. "Look, I talked to Dad. I think you're blowing the whole thing out of proportion. Families figure stuff out. It was just money. Just money. $200,000. My education. My future. My grandmother's legacy. It was $200,000, Caleb. Mine. Okay, technically, sure. But Dad did what he thought was right. And honestly," he paused, shifting, probably leaned back on whatever nice couch he was renting, "I needed it more. You always land on your feet. You're scrappy like that." Scrappy. The word people use to compliment your suffering while taking credit for causing it. I let the silence just sit there. His tone dropped. "Fine. Be like that. But I'm gonna be straight with you. If you keep this grudge thing going and it starts affecting Dad's reputation, I'll make sure everyone knows you left because you were jealous and couldn't handle not being the golden child. I'll make that the story." There he was. The real Caleb. Not the charming older brother. The same kid who'd sat at that kitchen table and said she draws rooms while I stood 10 feet away with dish soap on my hands. "Caleb," I said, and my voice was so steady it surprised even me. "Don't call me again unless it's with an apology and a cashier's check. And even then, call Frank Delgado first." I hung up. My hand was shaking. My face was not. That was the last time Caleb and I spoke for 2 years and 8 months, until he walked into my office. End of year 4. I'd been grinding for almost 3.5 years straight. Classes, the studio, freelance on weekends. A budget that creaked like old floorboards. Then 2 things happened in the same week. First, my biggest freelance client, a boutique hotel group I'd been doing brand identity work for, froze their entire creative budget. Contract terminated, effective immediately. That was $1,600 a month I'd been counting on. Second, my final semester bill at CCAD arrived. $4,800 due in 30 days. My savings account had $543. I sat in Sandra's old Honda Civic. She'd lent it to me semi-permanently, in the parking lot of a Walgreens at 11 at night, doing math on the back of a receipt. Every way I ran the numbers, I came up short. And for the first time since I'd left Westerville, for the first time in nearly 4 years, I heard my dad's voice in my head. Not a memory. Worse than that. A verdict. Maybe he was right. Maybe the girl who draws rooms doesn't have real potential. Maybe I should have just gone home. Learned a trade. Married someone appropriate. Hosted Easter dinners for the Marshalls until I turned into my mom. I picked up my phone. Rolled to where home used to be. I deleted the contact years ago, but I still remembered the number. My thumb hovered over the keypad. Then I looked at the passenger seat. The cedar box. I kept it in the car always, the way some people keep a cross on the rearview mirror. Your hands and your brain, baby girl. Nobody on this earth can repo those. I put the phone down. I didn't call home. Called Sandra. She picked up on the first ring. Nearly midnight. Answered like she'd been expecting it. Sandra, I'm sorry to call this late. I need to ask, do you have any overflow work? Anything at all? I'll take whatever you've got. She went quiet for a moment. Actually, Savannah. I've been meaning to talk to you. I'm leaving Westview. My stomach dropped. I'm starting my own firm. Residential and commercial. I've been planning it for 8 months. And I need a junior designer, full-time, salaried. Enough to finish your degree if that's what you're worried about. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel. Not because I was falling apart. 'Cause for the first time in 4 years the math worked. Sandra, why me? 'Cause I saw your hotel renovation concept from last month. That lobby redesign you put together on spec? That's not junior work, Savannah. That's principal-level thinking. You just haven't been told that yet. She didn't rescue me. She hired me. There is a difference, and it matters more than I can tell you. I started Monday. Design work during the day. Classes 3 evenings a week and Saturday mornings. 6 hours of sleep when I was lucky. It was the hardest year of my life. It was also the year everything turned. Aunt Lorraine called on a Sunday in November year 5. Caleb moved back home, she said. I set my pencil down. His startup didn't make it. Whatever it was, I still don't fully understand what he did. The BMW got repossessed last month. He's back in his old bedroom. I didn't feel triumph. I want to be honest about that. What I felt was a strange hollow ache. Kind that hits when something you predicted actually happens and you realize you'd spent all that time quietly hoping you were wrong. And Dad? Lorraine sighed. He pulled from the retirement account, refinanced the mortgage, put another $40,000 into Caleb to get him back on his feet. And Patricia, she paused, your mom started working checkout at the Kroger on Schrock Road. First job she's had since before you were born. My mother, Patricia Cole, scanning groceries at 53 because her husband had poured everything the family had into a son who couldn't finish a degree, couldn't hold a business together, and couldn't be straight about either. Does Dad ever mention me? I asked. I don't know why I asked. I think part of you never stops being the kid at that table hoping your dad will see you. No, honey, Lorraine said gently. He tells people Caleb is regrouping. He doesn't mention you at all. I picked up my pencil and went back to work. While my father was watching his investment get towed out of the driveway, I was signing my first commercial lease. Not an apartment. An office. I graduated from the Columbus College of Art and Design on a Saturday in May. Magna cum laude. Bachelor of Fine Arts in Interior Design. The auditorium was packed with families. Moms with flowers, dads holding up phones, little siblings squirming in the folding chairs. My section of guest seats had 2 chairs reserved under Cole. Both empty. Sandra sat in the 3rd row. Navy blazer, glasses pushed up on her head. When they called my name, Savannah Marie Cole, magna cum laude, she stood up and started clapping like she was trying to fill the entire empty row by herself. It was enough. 6 months later, Sandra and I made it official. She sat me down in the studio after everyone else had gone home. I want your name on the door. Park and Cole Interior Studio. 51% Sandra. 49% me. I brought my portfolio, my client relationships, and $9,500 I'd saved over 18 months. She brought the capital and the industry reputation. We signed in front of a notary on a Wednesday. Within 6 months, we'd outgrown the original space. 3 employees, then 9, then 18, then 50. Sandra handled high-end residential. I built a commercial consulting arm, corporate offices, restaurant concepts, boutique hotels, operating under Cole Creative Interiors, nested inside our shared umbrella. The day I saw my last name on a glass door that I owned, Not inherited, not borrowed, not handed to me. I stood there for 5 full minutes. Not to admire it. To believe it. Year 7. I was 25. And my life looked absolutely nothing like anything Douglas Cole had ever predicted for me. Park and Cole Interior Studio had moved into the Scioto Center building in downtown Columbus, a restored early 20th century office tower with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows on every floor. We took the entire 12th floor. 50 employees. Glass-walled studios, a design lab, a client presentation suite with a 12-seat walnut table. Our revenue had tripled in 2 years. We'd landed contracts with boutique hotel chains across the Midwest, 3 restaurant groups, and a corporate campus redevelopment for a financial services company in Cincinnati. My corner office had a view of the Scioto River. On my oak desk sat 2 things, a framed photo of Grandma Vivian and the cedar box, lid open, measuring tape still coiled inside. No family photos anywhere. Not one. Then I got an email from the Columbus Business First publication. Their annual 40 Under 40 Awards. I'd been nominated. Gala at the Greater Columbus Convention Center. 400 attendees. Media coverage. The kind of visibility that my father would have sold a kidney for Caleb to have. I read the email 3 times, then called Sandra. "You deserve this," she said. "Do not you dare turn it down." I accepted, sent the RSVP, and started writing my speech. I was going to thank Sandra, my professors at Columbus State and CCAD, and the woman who gave me my first $15,000 and taught me that nobody can repossess what's inside you. What I didn't plan for, what I couldn't have predicted, was that Columbus Business First posts nominee profiles with photos online 2 weeks before the gala, and that Westerville, Ohio is only 18 miles from downtown Columbus. It was Bobby Marshall who struck the match. Bobby, our old neighbor's son, the kid who used to shoot hoops with Caleb in the driveway, had moved to Columbus after college and worked in commercial real estate. He saw my 40 Under 40 profile the day it went live. Saw the name. Saw the headshot. He forwarded it to his mom with a note. "Isn't this the Cole girl?" Small world. Carol Marshall texted Douglas that same evening. "Congratulations, Douglas. Saw Savannah in Columbus Business First. What an achievement, you must be so proud." I know what happened next because Aunt Lorraine pieced it together later. Douglas opened the link on his kitchen iPad. Read the profile in silence. Co-founder of Park & Cole, 50 employees, major commercial clients, revenue growth, 40 Under 40 nomination. Quote from Sandra calling me one of the most instinctively gifted spatial designers I've worked with in my entire career. Douglas didn't say congratulations. He didn't say he was proud. He said to Patricia, who was standing at the stove, "She got lucky. Design is a trend. These things don't last." But Patricia, for the first time in 28 years, didn't nod along. "Douglas," she said quietly. "She built that without one single penny from us." He set the iPad on the counter and left the room. Caleb was upstairs in his old bedroom. 27 years old. Surrounded by rejection emails and $65,000 in credit card debt. He read the article twice. Then he walked downstairs and said the most honest thing I believe he said all year. "We should go see her. Maybe she can help." Douglas's first instinct was to refuse. Douglas Cole was not the kind of man who showed up at his daughter's door asking for anything. In his world, children came to parents, not the other way around. But Caleb knew exactly which lever to pull. "Dad, think about it. People find out your daughter is this successful and you're not even in contact? That looks way worse than anything Savannah could ever say about you." He was right. And they both knew it. This wasn't about reconnection. It was about optics. They agreed to drive to Columbus. No call ahead. No appointment. A surprise visit so Douglas could control the narrative. Walk in, shake hands, get a photo to put on the Ridgemont mantle. Proof that the Coles were a united family. They left Westerville on a Tuesday in early March. Douglas in his best suit, charcoal gray, probably 10 years old, a little snug through the chest. Caleb in wrinkled chinos and a polo that had seen better days. Trisha in the back seat clutching her purse with both hands, eyes already wet before they merged onto I-270. That Tuesday morning I was in early. 8 a.m. The 12th floor was quiet, just me, the hum of the HVAC and pale March light coming through the windows. My 40 under 40 speech was open on my laptop. The gala was Saturday. 4 days away. I'd been wrestling with one paragraph for 2 weeks, the part where I talked about Grandma Vivian. I want to thank the woman who gave me my first investment and taught me that the only things nobody can take from you are your hands and your mind. That line I had nailed. The next part kept tripping me up. How much to say? How close to the bone to cut? I was sipping black coffee from a custom mug Sandra had made for the studio when the intercom buzzed. Miss Cole. Janet, my assistant, voice careful and strange. There are 3 people in the lobby. No appointment. They say they're family. My hand froze mid-page. 7 years. No calls. No letters. No apology. And they just showed up. I know you can feel that. That buzz. Cold that shoots down your spine when the past you've finally outrun walks right into your building. I sat with it for 10 seconds. 10 full seconds. Fingertips pressed against my speech. The intercom light blinking green. I could have said no. Part of me, the 20-year-old who'd cried in a Walgreens parking lot, wanted to lock the door and never open it. But the 25-year-old who'd built this floor understood something that kid didn't. Running gives them power. The meeting them on my ground takes it back. Send them up, Janet. I straightened my blazer, pulled my chair in, opened a blank document on my laptop so they wouldn't see my speech, and I waited. The elevator chimed softly. I could hear it through the glass wall. Janet walked them through the lobby. Past the reception desk with its brushed brass logo, Park & Cole, mounted on a slate gray wall. Past the open studio where 50 employees sat at their stations, iMacs, design tablets, sample boards propped against desks. The morning light streaming in. The sound of a floor that runs. My dad walked first. Charcoal suit slightly too tight. Polished dress shoes he'd had for years. Behind him, Caleb, wrinkled chinos, hands already in his pockets like a teenager getting called to the principal's office. And behind Caleb, my mother, smaller than I remembered, clutching her purse with both hands, eyes already red. They walked past 50 people who had never heard of them, in a building with their daughter's name on the wall. Janet opened the conference room door. Walnut table, 12 chairs, 85-inch display screen, and a view of the Scioto River that you could charge admission for. Miss Cole will be right with you. I gave it 90 seconds. Not for drama. 'Cause I needed to breathe. Then I stood, picked up my legal pad and the Mont Blanc pen Sandra had given me the day we signed our partnership, and walked in. My mother saw me first. She made a sound, not a word, not exactly a cry, something in between, and her knees actually buckled. She grabbed the edge of the conference table, then Douglas's arm. Douglas steadied her, but his face, I will never forget that face. It was the face of a man who had driven to Columbus expecting to find a hobby and walked into an empire. Caleb just stood there staring at the logo on the wall, then at the table, then at me. His mouth opened and closed like he'd lost the script. I looked at all 3 of them with the exact expression I'd give a walk-in client without an appointment. Professional. Courteous. Completely empty of anything personal. Please sit down. Can I get you water or coffee? They sat. Douglas took the head of the table, pure instinct, then seemed to realize it wasn't his table and shifted awkwardly to the side. Patricia took the chair nearest the door like she was leaving herself an exit. Caleb sat between them, arms crossed, eyes scanning the room like he was appraising real estate. Nobody took the coffee. Douglas spoke first. You've done well for yourself, Savannah. He said it with a slow nod, The exact same nod he used to give Caleb's report cards. Like he was grading me. I always knew you were resourceful. Resourceful. Not talented. Not brilliant. Resourceful. The word you use for someone who survived despite the obstacles you put in front of them. I let the silence sit for 4 full seconds. Thank you. Now, how can I help you today? Douglas blinked. He'd expected warmth. Maybe tears. Maybe the prodigal daughter. What he got was a conference room and a question he had to answer honestly. We're here because we're family, he said, adjusting his cuffs. Too much time has passed. Your mother and I want to make things right. Patricia nodded, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Then Caleb cleared his throat, leaned forward on the walnut table, tried to put on his old charm school voice. Savannah, look, I could really use your perspective on some business stuff. I've got a few things in the works. You could just... Are you a client, Caleb? He frowned. What? This is a business consultation. I'll have Janet schedule you. Our rate is $375 an hour. The room went completely still. Douglas's jaw tightened. A vein above his left temple, the one I remembered from childhood, the one that showed up right before his voice went sharp, pulsed once. I set a business card on the table between us. Savannah Cole, co-founder, Park & Cole Interior Studio. Douglas looked at the card. He didn't pick it up. I'm happy to help, I said. But I need to understand the capacity. Are you here as family? Or as a business inquiry? Because as family, we haven't spoken in 7 years, and that wasn't my choice. And that's when the mask came off. Douglas pushed back from the table, both hands flat on the walnut surface. 7 years of carefully maintained composure, cracked right down the middle. Enough with the corporate act. We're your parents. We drove 2 hours. You're going to sit there and treat us like strangers? You drove 2 hours, I said. That's more effort than you put in over 7 years. His face flushed. I made a decision for this family. I looked at 2 kids and I put the money where it had the best chance of paying off. Look at you, you figured it out. You're fine. Got over it. Like $200,000 was a stubbed toe. You transferred $200,000 with my name on it to Caleb's account without my consent, I said. My voice didn't crack. I'd said this sentence in my head 1,000 times, not for this moment but for myself. For the version of me who needed to hear it out loud. That wasn't a family decision, Dad. That was a breach of your fiduciary duty as a UTMA custodian. I chose not to sue you. That doesn't mean I forgot. Douglas's face drained. Not red anymore. White. Color of a man who just realized the person he dismissed has spent 7 years understanding exactly what he did, with the vocabulary to prove it. How did you? I had a lawyer. The same one Grandma Vivian named as trustee for the account she set up in my name. The one whose letters you intercepted. Tricia's head snapped toward Douglas. What letters? She whispered. He said nothing. Caleb, who had been slowly sinking into his chair, suddenly leaned forward. Savannah. Look. I'm in a rough spot, okay? I owe like 65 grand. Mostly credit cards. If you could just, a bridge loan, just something to help me get on my feet. No. The word landed like a stone. Come on, his voice cracked. We're blood. Blood didn't stop you from taking my future, Caleb. It's not going to make me fund yours. He looked at Douglas the way he always did, looking for the backup, the reinforcement. But Douglas was staring at the table, jaw working, still processing fiduciary duty and the ghost of letters he'd thrown in the trash. Then Patricia broke. Not the quiet kind. Not the sink-crying kind. Something deeper. Savannah. Her voice came apart at the edges. I know I should have said something. I was standing right there. I saw what he did and I was scared. Your father, Mom. I said it gently. Not warm. Not cold. The way you speak to someone who's telling you what you already know. I know you were scared. But you were the adult. I was 18. I needed one person in that house to stand up for me. One. And you chose silence. Patricia pressed both hands over her mouth. And she cried the way people cry when they've been holding something back for 7 years. Douglas said nothing. Caleb said nothing. And in that silence, I reached into the folder I'd kept in my desk drawer for 7 years. Never opened, never thrown away. I placed one sheet of paper on the table in front of my father. The email. His email. Dated March 12th, 7 years ago. From Douglas J. Cole. To Heartland Federal Bank. Re-UTMA account transfer. 4 sentences. $200,000. Moving from my account to Caleb's. My name appearing exactly once, as a number. This is what you gave me, Dad. My voice was steady. A transfer confirmation. Everything else I gave myself. Douglas looked at the paper. His hand moved toward it, then stopped. He didn't pick it up. Through the glass walls, I could see 3 of my designers glancing in, the way you do when something's happening but you don't want to get caught looking. Janet was at her desk pretending to type. 50 people on this floor who had no idea who these 3 people were. That was the entire point. Douglas Cole was not a man who made scenes in public. He'd saved that for kitchens and closed doors his whole life. So he sat there in a suit that didn't fit, in a room that wasn't his, at a table he didn't own, staring at proof of what he'd done. And he said nothing. Because there was nothing left to say. I stood up. Slowly. The way you stand when a meeting has run its course and everyone knows it. I'm going to be straight with all 3 of you. Douglas. Patricia. Caleb. I don't hate you. Hating you would mean you still have a say in how I feel. You don't. Douglas's eyes were on the table. Caleb was picking at the hem of his polo. Patricia had stopped crying, but her breathing was still ragged, tissue pressed against her chest like a compress. I won't be lending Caleb money. I won't be pretending we're a happy family for the Marshalls. And I won't be accepting a version of this story where Dad made a smart investment and I just turned out fine anyway. I paused. If there's ever going to be a real relationship between us, it starts with 3 things. A genuine apology, not the kind that starts with "I'm sorry you feel that way." Real accountability for what was taken, not minimized, not explained away. And respect for who I became without you. I picked up my legal pad and my pen. Till then, Janet will show you out. Douglas stood. Buttoned his jacket wrong, middle button, the one you grab when your hands aren't thinking. He looked around through the glass at the rows of designers, the logo on the far wall, the skyline beyond the windows. He was measuring something. The distance between what he'd imagined for his family and what had actually happened. He didn't apologize. He walked toward the door. Caleb followed, head down, hands back in his pockets. He didn't look at me. Tricia was last. She moved slowly, holding the chair for balance. She looked at me, really looked at me the way she hadn't since I was a kid, and said very quietly, "Your grandmother would be proud of you." Something in my chest cracked. Just a little. Not enough to change anything. Just enough to feel. "I know," I said. Janet held the door open. The studio flooded back in, keyboards, a ringing phone, someone laughing over by the coffee station. The ordinary sound of a business running. My business. Douglas walked through the studio with his shoulders pulled in. Charcoal suit moved through rows of iMacs and standing desks, and not one single person looked up. 'Cause he was nobody here. The elevator chimed. Doors opened. They stepped in. Douglas first, then Caleb, then Patricia, who turned at the last second and looked back down the hallway toward my office. I was already walking back to my desk. The doors closed. And for the first time in 7 years, I let myself think the thought I'd been holding at arm's length since I was 18 years old. I won. Not because of the office. Not because of the title or the view or the name on the wall. 'Cause I was standing in a room I'd built with my own 2 hands, and the people who tried to decide my future had just walked out of it with nothing. Let me tell you where everyone ended up because you deserve the full picture. Douglas Cole took early retirement 14 months after our conference room meeting, though retirement is generous. His company restructured his division at 57, and with a gutted retirement account and a refinanced mortgage, he had nothing left to negotiate with. He still lives in the Westerville house. The shutters he used to repaint every spring are peeling. Carol Marshall told Aunt Lorraine that Douglas doesn't come outside much. When people ask about me, and apparently they do more and more, he changes the subject. He has never apologized. Caleb works at a Honda dealership in Lancaster, Ohio. Sales associate. 27 years old. He spent $200,000 of my future on a leased BMW, a Lincoln Park apartment, and a lifestyle that had no foundation under it. Credit card debt is still there, on a payment plan. Aunt Lorraine says he's quieter now. Less sure of himself. Whether that's growth or just defeat, I genuinely can't say. He has not apologized either. Tricia moved out in June. Rented a 1-bedroom in Dublin, Ohio. Small. Clean. Hers. She got a full-time job at an accounting office and enrolled in a bookkeeping certificate program at Columbus State Community College. The same Columbus State I attended. There's an irony in that I don't need to unpack. Patricia Cole, at 55, is learning a trade. And for the first time in 28 years, she has a bank account with only her name on it. I think about that more than I expected to. The letter arrived on a Thursday. No return address. My name in my mother's handwriting on the envelope, that looping S, the slight leftward slant she'd had since she was a girl. I opened it at my desk after everyone had gone home. Dear Savannah, I watched the video Aunt Lorraine sent of your speech. I watched it 6 times. I'm writing this at the kitchen table, the same table, and I don't think I can sit here anymore after hearing what you said. I failed you. I need to say that plainly because I've spent 7 years avoiding it. Your father made the decision, but I stood there and let it happen. I was scared. I have been scared for 28 years. Scared of his voice, scared of being wrong, scared that if I spoke up the whole structure would fall apart. So I stood there and said nothing while he took your money, your future, and your place in this family. And I told myself I was keeping the peace. It wasn't peace. It was cowardice. I see that now. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't think I've earned it. But I need you to know I see what I did. I see who you've become. And I am done standing at that sink with my mouth shut. I've contacted a divorce attorney. I'm looking at apartments. For the first time in 28 years, I am choosing myself. You taught me that the night you walked out that door. I just wish it hadn't taken me 7 years to follow. Your grandmother would be proud of you. I know because I am. Mom. I set the letter down on my oak desk next to Grandma Vivian's photo and I cried. Not the way I cried in Frank Delgado's office. That had been grief, for lost time, for lost money, for a father who would never be able to see me clearly. This was different. This was mourning the mother-daughter relationship we should have had all along. Douglas sent nothing. Caleb sent a single text the night after my gala. Congrats on the award. 5 words. No accountability. No acknowledgement. Just 5 words that cost him nothing and meant about the same. I read it once and put my phone down. I read my mother's letter 3 more times. Then I placed it on my desk in the small collection of things that had come from people who actually believed in me. Grandma Vivian's photo, the cedar box, and now this letter. I didn't write back that night. But I didn't throw it away. That was new. I wrote back on a Tuesday evening at my kitchen table, not the office, my apartment in Clintonville. 1 bedroom. A bookshelf I'd built myself from a furniture kit. A fiddle-leaf fig Sandra swore I'd kill in a month that was somehow still alive 8 months later. I didn't draft it. I just wrote, "Mom, I got your letter. I've read it more times than I'll probably admit to you. I'm not ready to talk yet. I don't know when I will be. But I'm not going to lie to you about that because I think we've both had enough of people saying things they don't mean in this family. What I do want you to know is this: the fact that you're starting over at 55, that you signed a lease, opened your own bank account, and enrolled in a program, that takes more courage than a lot of things I've done. I built a company out of spite and stubbornness. You're rebuilding an entire life after 28 years of silence. I don't know which one is actually harder. I think it might be yours. Grandma would be proud of you too. Savannah." I folded it, wrote the Dublin address on the front, set it by the door with my keys. I didn't write to Douglas. Maybe one day. But I've learned not to force open doors that were slammed in your face. I didn't write to Caleb either. There's a difference between a door that's closed and a door that was never real. If he ever comes to me with an apology that doesn't open with a dollar amount, I'll listen. But I won't hold my breath. Forgiveness isn't a light switch. It's a door. And for the first time in 7 years, I'm not boarding it shut either. People ask me if I'm angry. I was. For about 3 years, anger was the engine running everything. Got me out of bed at 5 in the morning for the early barista shift. Kept me at my drafting table until midnight, redoing work that was already good enough but needed to be undeniable. Anger is an excellent fuel, efficient, hot, available in unlimited supply when your family gives you reason. But anger has a shelf life. If you let it run too long, it stops pushing you forward and starts eating you from the inside. Somewhere around year 4, maybe that night in the Walgreens parking lot, maybe the morning Sandra offered me that job, the anger didn't disappear. Just changed shape. Turned into something quieter, steadier. Less like a fire. More like a foundation. I don't tell this story for sympathy. I built a good life and I built it with my eyes open. I tell it because somewhere right now, someone is sitting at a kitchen table being told they don't have potential. Someone's parent is signing away their future and calling it a practical decision. Someone's mother is staring at the floor choosing silence over her own child. And the person at that table is starting to believe it. Don't. My father took $200,000 from me. But the real theft wasn't the money. The real theft was the years I spent wondering if he was right. That voice, maybe he was right. Maybe I'm not enough. Maybe the girl who draws rooms doesn't deserve a seat at the real table. That's what I had to pay off. And the interest on self-doubt compounds faster than any bank. I paid it off. Not with revenge. Not with spite. With work. With proof. With the kind of quiet that only comes from knowing, actually knowing your own worth. The best revenge isn't loud. It's the sound of a life well built, heard by the people who bet against you. I'm 25 years old. I have a company, a partner I trust with everything, a desk with a cedar sewing box on it, and a letter from my mother sitting by the front door waiting to be dropped in the mailbox on the corner of Indianola and Weber. Tomorrow morning I'll grab my keys, pick up that envelope, and drive to work. If this story stayed with you, if you felt something, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe if you haven't already, and tap the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you've got your own story about being counted out and coming back stronger, I want to hear it. Drop it in the comments. You never know who's reading, sitting at their own kitchen table right now, needing exactly what you have to say. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one.